There is a place in south-central Kentucky where the earth opens its mouth and swallows the light whole. Sunlight filters through the canopy above the entrance and then simply stops, surrendering to a darkness that predates every civilization above it. This is Mammoth Cave, the longest known cave system on the planet. More than 426 miles of passages beneath the Kentucky hills. But the length is not the strangest part. What was found miles inside, left by people who entered total darkness more than 4,000 years ago, is what no one can fully explain. Preserved bodies, tools, systematic expeditions repeated over centuries, for reasons researchers still cannot answer. If you are new here, this channel covers ancient history buried beneath American soil that most people were never taught. Subscribe and let us know if you had ever heard what was found inside Mammoth Cave. What the historical record actually reveals about this cave begins not with scientists, but with the indigenous peoples of the eastern woodlands, who entered these passages somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 years ago. These were not casual visitors. Archaeological evidence from the upper 3 levels shows that Native American explorers navigated more than 19 miles of subterranean passages using nothing more than torches fashioned from bundled river cane, the reed that once grew thick along the banks of the Green River above. They left behind woven bags, mussel shell scrapers harvested from the river, limestone hammerstones, and the charred remains of their torches deposited at regular intervals along the routes they traveled. This was not wandering, this was mining. What they were after, according to decades of archaeological study, were specific cave minerals: gypsum, mirabilite, epsomite, and selenite, all found in crystalline deposits along the walls and ceilings of the upper passages. The evidence is unmistakable. Battering marks scar the limestone where they pried minerals loose. Discarded mussel shell tools litter the floors miles from any entrance, and wooden climbing poles were constructed to reach deposits high on the walls in corridors where no natural light had ever penetrated. The question that has haunted researchers for more than a century is deceptively simple. Why? Gypsum could have been ground into white pigment for body paint. Mirabilite, a naturally occurring form of Glauber's salt, may have served medicinal purposes. Some researchers have proposed the minerals were used for food preservation. But the sheer scale of the effort, the distances traveled, the dangers endured, suggests something more. Something that carried enough cultural weight to justify sending people miles into the belly of the earth, again and again, over roughly 2,000 years. The most haunting evidence of these ancient journeys is not the tools or the minerals, it is the bodies. In the summer of 1811, workers mining saltpeter discovered a mummified infant so fragile that it reportedly disintegrated upon exposure to the open air. Later that same year, a far more enduring discovery emerged from what was then called Short Cave. Workers found a female figure entombed in a stone crypt roughly 10 feet below the surface. She stood approximately 5 feet and 10 inches tall in life, but weighed only 14 pounds in her desiccated state, wrapped in 2 layers of deerskin bearing the imprints of leaves and vines. The grave goods were extraordinary. 7 feathered headdresses, hundreds of strung beads, a necklace fashioned from 20 small red fawn hooves, pendants of eagle claws and bear jaw, dried rattlesnake skins, bone needles, and cane whistles. She became known as Fawn Hoof. Her remains would travel to the American Antiquarian Society, be displayed at both the 1876 Philadelphia Centennial Exposition and the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, and finally come to rest at the Smithsonian Institution, cataloged as box number 4789. But perhaps no discovery has been more viscerally striking than the one made on June 7, 1935, when guides Lyman Cutliff and Grover Campbell, working with a civilian Conservation Corps crew, found the body of a man crushed beneath a 6-ton limestone boulder, approximately 2 miles from the historic entrance. He had been mining gypsum when the rock gave way. His collection bag, woven from plant fiber, still hung from his shoulder. A polished mussel shell scraper lay near his hand. His stomach contained the remnants of his last meal, hickory nuts and sunflower seeds. Radiocarbon dating would later place his death at approximately 445 BC. He became known as Lost John. He was roughly 45 years old and stood 5 feet 3.5 inches tall. For decades, his body was displayed to tourists in the spot where he died, until the 1970s, when he was quietly reburied at an undisclosed location within the park, known only to the superintendent. The cave had kept him for nearly 2,500 years. The modern world managed barely 40. What the cave's more recent history reveals is no less dramatic. When the War of 1812 severed British gunpowder supply lines, Mammoth Cave became a strategic asset overnight. The dry upper passages contained vast deposits of calcium nitrate, the essential precursor to saltpeter, the critical ingredient in gunpowder. By 1813, an operation employing between 100 and 120 workers, the vast majority enslaved African American men, leased from plantations across the region, was extracting saltpeter on an industrial scale. They built enormous wooden leaching vats in the rotunda, a cathedral-sized chamber near the entrance, and constructed an elaborate system of wooden pipes and pumps to carry nitrate solution to the surface. The remains of that infrastructure, the vats, the pipes, the pump tower, still stand inside the cave today, preserved by the same constant conditions that kept the ancient bodies intact. What emerged from that era was not just gunpowder, but something arguably more consequential: knowledge. The enslaved men who worked deep inside learned the cave's passages with an intimacy no one else possessed. And when the saltpeter operation shut down following the Treaty of Ghent in 1815, some transitioned into a different role entirely. They became the cave's first guides. Among them was Stephen Bishop, who arrived at Mammoth Cave in 1838, at approximately 17 years of age, brought by his enslaver, Franklin Gorin. In 1839, Dr. John Croghan purchased both the cave and Bishop for $10,000, and Bishop's exploration began in earnest. He was extraordinary. Working alone or with a single companion, carrying only a lantern, Bishop crossed the chasm known as Bottomless Pit by laying a tall ladder across its mouth, opening miles of unknown passages beyond. He discovered the River Styx and Lake Lethe, the towering Mammoth Dome, and the ornate passage he christened the Ruins of Karnak. He navigated Fat Man's Misery and Tall Man's Misery. He was also the first to document the cave's eyeless fish, a species that had evolved in total darkness so long it had abandoned sight entirely. In 1842, working entirely from memory at the Croghan family estate called Locust Grove near Louisville, Bishop drew a map of the cave system, depicting approximately 10 miles of passages, roughly half of which he had personally discovered. That map, published in 1844 as an insert in Alexander Clark Bullitt's book titled Rambles in the Mammoth Cave, remained the authoritative guide to the system for more than 4 decades. Remarkably, Bishop's map indicated a passage connection that would not be confirmed until 1972, more than a century after his death. He died in the summer of 1857 at the age of approximately 36 and was buried in the Old Guides Cemetery on the South Hill above the cave. His gravestone, added later by a man named James R. Mellon, incorrectly lists his death year as 1859. Bishop was not alone in his legacy. The Bransford family, beginning with Materson and Nicholas Bransford, who worked alongside Bishop from 1838 onward, produced 5 generations of cave guides spanning more than a century and a half, a lineage that was broken only when the National Park Service took over the cave in 1941, and, for roughly 60 years, permitted no black guides to work there. That silence was finally ended when Jerry Bransford, a direct descendant, returned to guide tours in the early 2000s. Subscribe now, because what happened next inside this cave sounds almost impossible, and the evidence is still there today. What Dr. John Croghan did with Mammoth Cave in the autumn of 1842 ranks among the strangest medical experiments in American history. Croghan, himself suffering from tuberculosis, became convinced that the cave's constant temperature, its pure air, and its isolation from surface conditions might cure the disease that was slowly killing him. He ordered the construction of a hospital inside the cave. Enslaved workers built 2 stone cabins and 8 wooden structures, each measuring roughly 12 by 18 feet, fitted with tongue-and-groove flooring and canvas roofs. Deep inside the passages, 16 tuberculosis patients took up residence underground. Initially, according to contemporary accounts, some patients seemed to improve, but the reality was brutal. Smoke from the lard oil lanterns they relied on for light filled the enclosed spaces, and the persistent dampness that Krogan had hoped would soothe damaged lungs instead further degraded them. 5 patients died inside the cave. The experiment was abandoned after no more than 5 months. Krogan himself died of tuberculosis in 1849, having proved only that darkness and damp stone could not cure what medicine of the era could not yet understand. The 2 stone cottages he ordered built remain standing inside the cave today, visible on guided tours, silent monuments to desperation dressed as science. The decades that followed brought a different kind of madness to the Kentucky cave country. By the early 20th century, more than 20 caves in the region operated as tourist attractions, and the competition between their owners escalated into what historians now call the Cave Wars. This was not metaphorical warfare. Operators hired men known as cappers to intercept tourists on roads leading to Mammoth Cave, throwing leaflets into car windows, posing as fellow travelers who casually mentioned that Mammoth Cave was closed or smoke-filled, all while steering visitors toward rival attractions. They sabotaged each other's roads, broke into competing caves to damage formations, and destroyed signs with systematic enthusiasm. Court testimony from 1928 recorded a bounty of $2 per sign destroyed and $10 for burning a rival's ticket office. In 1921, Postmaster Len Ferguson shot a man named Clell Lee twice in the back, killing him, in a dispute rooted in the cave competition. George Morrison, who arrived around 1915, escalated the conflict by illegally accessing Mammoth Cave and opening what he called the new entrance to Mammoth Cave in 1922. The most infamous chapter of the Cave Wars was not a commercial rivalry but a tragedy. In January of 1925, a cave explorer named William Floyd Collins entered Sand Cave searching for a new tourist attraction. 55 feet below the surface, a rock weighing 26.5 pounds fell and pinned his left leg. His brother Homer initially delivered food through the tight passages, but on February 4th, a collapse blocked all access. Rescue teams began digging a vertical shaft with roughly 75 volunteers. A reporter named Skeets Miller from the Louisville Courier-Journal was small enough to reach Collins underground, and his dispatches, broadcast by radio, made this one of the first major media events in American broadcasting. Miller won a Pulitzer Prize. The shaft reached Collins on February 16th, but he had been dead for approximately 3 days, killed by thirst, hunger, and hypothermia after 17 days underground. The aftermath was grotesque. His body was placed in a glass-topped coffin and exhibited inside Crystal Cave. In 1929, it was stolen, recovered in a field with the left leg missing, and returned to display. Not until 1989 did the National Park Service give Floyd Collins a proper burial at Mammoth Cave Baptist Church Cemetery. His tombstone reads, simply, "Greatest cave explorer ever known." The Cave Wars wound down only after Mammoth Cave National Park was established on July 1, 1941. But the cave had far more to reveal. On September 9, 1972, a team of 6 explorers from the Cave Research Foundation achieved what generations of cavers had dreamed of. John Wilcox led the expedition, accompanied by Patricia Crowther, Richard Zopf, Gary Eller, Stephen Wells, and Cleveland Pinnix, a Park Service ranger. Patricia Crowther, weighing roughly 115 pounds, had been the first person to navigate a 35-foot-long squeeze called the Tight Spot during an earlier expedition in July, a passage so narrow that her small frame was essential. On August 30th, a team found the inscription Pete H carved into a river passage wall with a directional arrow, left by explorer Pete Hansen, confirming they had reached Mammoth Cave territory. On September 9th, the final team followed Hansen's Lost River downstream and emerged into Cascade Hall, where it connected with Echo River inside Mammoth Cave proper. 2 systems became one. The combined surveyed length was 144 miles, instantly making it the longest cave on Earth. The story was documented in the 1976 book The Longest Cave by Roger W. Brucker and Richard A. Watson. What lives inside this darkness is almost as remarkable as what died there. The Mammoth Cave ecosystem harbors 49 species that exist only in caves, divided between 32 terrestrial species and 17 aquatic ones, with 7 species found nowhere else on the planet. The system served as the type locality, the place where a species was first scientifically described, for 33 cave-limited species, ranking it third globally for subterranean biodiversity. The northern cavefish, Amblyopsis spelaea, is entirely blind and completely devoid of pigment, a ghost-white creature that navigates by sensing vibrations in the water. Mammoth Cave is one of the only systems on Earth where two species of cavefish coexist, as the southern cavefish, Typhlichthys subterraneus, inhabits different passages within the same network. The Kentucky cave shrimp, Palaemonias ganteri, is a translucent creature roughly 1¼ inches long that has no eyes, lives for 10 to 15 years, and was designated a federally endangered species. It was named the 2025 Cave Animal of the Year by the National Speleological Society and is found exclusively in the lowest level passages near Roaring River, which has been designated its critical habitat. The cave also once sheltered vast colonies of bats, with historical populations of the Indiana bat and gray bat estimated between 9 and 12 million individuals, numbers that have collapsed to a few thousand, largely due to white nose syndrome, which was first detected in the cave in 2012. The rock that holds all of this was laid down approximately 330 million years ago during the Mississippian period, when a warm, shallow sea covered what is now Kentucky. 3 limestone formations, the Gherkin, the Stay, Genevieve, and the St. Louis, stacked roughly 300 feet thick, provide the soluble bedrock through which water has been carving passages for 10 to 15 million years. Above them sits the Big Clifty Sandstone, an impermeable caprock that acts as a shield, keeping vast sections remarkably dry and preserving everything within, from ancient bodies to 200-year-old mining equipment. According to radiometric dating conducted by the United States Geological Survey, the upper levels were fully formed by approximately 3.2 million years ago. The cave contains 5 distinct levels, 4 fossil levels that no longer carry water, and a modern river level more than 300 feet below the surface, still dissolving limestone, still extending the system further. Modern technology has begun to reveal dimensions of Mammoth Cave that neither the ancient miners nor Stephen Bishop could have imagined. 3-dimensional laser scanning by Whiteman and Associates has produced digital replicas of cave surfaces for the National Park Service, allowing researchers to study the environment without physically altering it. Above-ground LiDAR surveys presented in 2013 by researchers John Wall and Hugh Devine of North Carolina State University, along with George Crothers of the University of Kentucky, have enabled the detection of archaeological sites through digital elevation modeling. Environmental DNA research, including a 2019 thesis by Andrew J. Stump at Eastern Kentucky University, demonstrated that the endangered cave shrimp can be detected through water sampling alone, revealing 6 distinct genetic variations within the population. And a 2025 study in molecular biology and evolution by Brownstein and colleagues analyzed 874 ultra-conserved genetic sequences to show that at least 4 lineages of cavefish independently colonized cave environments through convergent evolution, with loss-of-function mutations in 95 vision-related genes. Blindness evolved not once but multiple times, separately, in different populations, all arriving at the same solution to the same darkness. Mammoth Cave was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1981 at the 5th session of the World Heritage Committee in Sydney, Australia, recognized for its superlative natural formations, its 100-million-year geological record, and its more than 130 wildlife species, 14 of which are found nowhere else. In 1990, it was further designated an International Biosphere Reserve under UNESCO's Man and the Biosphere program, encompassing 909,328 acres across the park and 6 surrounding counties. And still the cave grows. Every year, survey teams push into passages that have never been seen by human eyes, or at least not for thousands of years, adding new miles to a system that already dwarfs every other cave on Earth. The darkness down there is patient. It has been patient for 330 million years, and it will be patient for 330 million more, dissolving limestone 1 water molecule at a time, building cathedrals that no one may ever see. The ancient people who descended into that darkness with their burning cane torches knew something about this place that we are only beginning to recover, not through their technology, but through their willingness to go where the light ends and keep walking. Science has given us extraordinary tools to measure what they left behind: their minerals, their bodies, their DNA, the chemistry of their last meals. But science has not yet answered the simplest question: what was it, exactly, that was worth the dark? If this surprised you, leave it in the comments and subscribe for more ancient American history hiding beneath the surface.